At this time, I'd like to welcome our first keynote speaker. We have Mr. Behrooz Abdi, who's the Chief Executive Officer and President of InvenSense. He's our first keynote, as I mentioned, and his topic is Building the Future, One Bridge at a Time. Mr. Abdi?
Thank you, Rajan, and thanks to Amir, Kamran, and Zorajan, and everybody who put that, Darishan, everybody who put this event together. It's an honor to be here. So as we say in Iran, Bacha Damatun Ya. So thank you. Let me just make sure that I can operate a technology. So what I wanted to start with is a little bit of a reflection. And I know most of you guys know what's been happening in the last 35 years, but I thought I'd do a little bit of reflection for us. As you know, there was a revolution that started in 1979, and I want to reflect on that just a little bit. I'm talking about the other revolution. I'm talking about the technology revolution that started in 1980s, right around the time that a lot of us came to here, a lot of the Iranians, entrepreneurs, and a lot of technologists that came to the Valley and to the US. And back then, I was a poor student. Now I'm a poor entrepreneur. But it really started with what we call Moore's Law. For those of you who are not familiar with this, it's really Gordon Moore of Intel who set out these hypotheses that number of transistors will double every 18 months on a piece of silicon for the same cost. And lo and behold, that's been really happening for the last 3.5, 4 decades. And what Moore's Law did is really profound. It started the computer. It really fueled the PC revolution, the internet, the bandwidth, more bandwidth, which led to big data, what we call big data, mobility, wireless, artificial intelligence, and it's had really a profound impact on our lives, on our daily lives throughout the planet. Just some numbers. Just in the last, since 1980, there's been 2 million times increase in number of transistors per dollar. A computer chip, a PC microchip nowadays routinely has anywhere from 2 to 4 to 5 to 6 billion devices on a piece of silicon, a couple of inches on a side, a few centimeters on a side. Memory density. Memory density has increased by about 100 million times per bits per dollar since 1980. You know, so storage, which is really good for all the videos of cat playing piano and doing all the things that we store in the cloud. So the memory storage has gone up 100 million times. So what that does is really the computational power. When you look at the computational power in the last 30 years has gone up by 10 million times. And this chart goes back to 1900, you know, before, when you had the punch cards and the mechanical relays and the vacuum tubes and transistors and integrated circuits. It is really remarkable. The same thing if you look at the bandwidth. Bandwidth to the home has gone up by thousands of times since 1980. So at least in a lot of the countries. And interesting enough, for bandwidth, US has fallen behind many countries, which is really interesting when we talk about the impact of technology globally. You know, South Korea has probably the most bandwidth to the home. 100 megabits, 200 megabits, they're thinking about 500 meg and gig to come into the home is pretty commonplace. You know, I thought that Moore's Law was pretty impressive until I came upon this chart. The cost per genome over the last decade has gone down by 5 orders of magnitude. Quite frankly, I'm not sure what a genome is, you know, because I'm a transistor guy. But whatever it is, it's even more impressive than Moore's Law. So what that really means, what that's really done to our industry and to our global presence is just profound. This is perhaps the most productive era in the history of humankind. When you think about that, you know, when you go, you know, 35 years prior to the last 3 decades, or 50 years prior to that, or 500 years, it looks from a productivity, from many of the metrics that you look at, it looks like a flat line. So it's really, really profound, the changes in the transformation. Obviously, what we've seen and what that has done to our industry is that to our global economics and the ecosystem is China and Taiwan are now essential parts of high-tech supply chain. There's 500 companies doing chips in China compared to less than 100 before the year 2000. China has emerged as the top consumer of high technology. Over 50% of every semiconductor chip is consumed in China. More interesting and more relevant to Iran and to what we're talking about here is new centers of excellence have appeared. US and the West has no longer a monopoly on IP, talent, on smart people, on technology. It's well distributed. It's getting well distributed throughout the globe, which really provides opportunities. You know, you look at these days, it started with China in manufacturing. Now they're doing chip design. Now they're doing research in a lot of new areas, artificial intelligence. There's a lot of competition to Google now coming out of China. You look at nanotechnology, South Korea, a lot of IP, a lot of technology there. A lot of the software engineers in Eastern Europe or South America. We're talking about a lot of wireless design in Northern Europe. So Singapore is started as a hub of hard disk drives and storage companies, and now it's transformed itself into biotechnology. So when you look at that, it really has created opportunity for everybody in the globe. For those of you who read the book from Tom Friedman, The World is Flat, it is truly profound in many ways. It is a flatter world than we were used to. So high tech is driving new economics and new behaviors. It's lowering the barrier of entry for high tech, for technology. You know, when a college student in Massachusetts can start Facebook and within 10 years get to a $100 billion valuation or $80 billion, whatever that is these days, that's truly remarkable. You no longer need to go and build an infrastructure. You don't, before you do that, you don't need to invest millions of dollars to start a company. The barriers have been lowered. A company called Skype, I don't know who uses Skype, but Skype started in Estonia by a bunch of engineers in Tallinn, Estonia. So a lot of these companies that you might be familiar with, they are either have centers of excellence in these regions or started, and with very little capital. And that, to me, is really, really exciting. That is really exciting about what Iran can accomplish, what the entrepreneurs can accomplish. And I'm just very anxious to hear what they've done so far. And I know and I've heard some of the smartest algorithmic people and artificial intelligence software people that I've met are coming from Iran. A lot of research coming for MEMS, for sensors coming from Iran. So it's really incredible how the world has changed because of the technology lower barrier. There's instant access to information, technology, IP, communication, manufacturing. When I started in this business, I used to have, go to the office, big, workstation, local server, the base, everything together in the company. You had to invest millions of dollars in doing a design, chip design or software design. And to do manufacturing, you had to have connection. You had to be a big company to get connections to build. Sometimes you had to build your own manufacturing. Now, your workstation is your laptop. You can be sitting out there outside, somewhere on the campus, in a garden, design a product, and look up on the website, find some talent someplace, hire them to do some software for you, whether it's an app or some back-end technology. And then you can, find the manufacturer in southern China, in Shenzhen, and have a product built for you and delivered in prototype. That is really amazing. And that's the power of technology, and that's what really I'm excited about, what's going to happen in the next few years. The other thing that's really interesting is less conflict over ideology and more competition over IP. That, again, is happening throughout the world in many, many different regions. Again, a simple example is China and Taiwan. have been going to those regions for years. You know, you got the China communist, which arguably is probably more capitalist than anybody else. But you got the communist China and you got the capitalist Taiwan. China, for, you know, just animosity for decades. And China actually didn't recognize Taiwan till recently. I don't even know if they still recognize them as a country or not. But what happened in the last few years is that the Chinese started working with Taiwan. And for whatever reason, they ended up being part of the same supply chain. Companies like Foxconn, who builds the majority of the Apple iPhones and iPads in southern China. The silicon and a lot of technology that goes in there comes from Taiwan. Up until just a few short years ago, you couldn't get on a flight, direct flight from Taipei in Taiwan to China. And it's only a couple hours flight, but you had to go, if you wanted to go from Taipei to Shanghai or Beijing, you had to either go through Tokyo, Seoul, Hong Kong, anywhere but a direct flight. Now there's a direct flight, and it's pretty simple. I can only imagine, I can only speculate, I wasn't there, but I can only imagine that Taiwanese entrepreneurs and the Chinese entrepreneurs and the government bureaucrats got together in a room and said, well, you know, we don't like your ideology, you don't like our ideology, but you know, we got to have a direct flight. We got to get these chips faster to the manufacturing site so we can get the factory built up. Otherwise, we're going to lose competition to Vietnam. I mean, it's simple things like that. So this, and I think Tom Friedman calls this the Dell's theory of non-conflict. I think it's, you know, in a lot of cases it's true. So again, that is what is happening to our world. It is getting flatter. So what that means in terms of GDP, you look at back in a few decades ago, US had the lion's share, 26%, China was 3%, India was 2%. And US has actually lost share, you know, a few percentage shares. China has come up over 400, close to 400%. India has come up by about 40%. So you can see, again, not all of this might be attributed to the technology, but it is a big part of that is. And when you look at in the US, 2.8% growth, GDP growth. When you look at the Bay Area, Silicon Valley is double digit. We really haven't seen much recession. Our recession lasted maybe a year, year and a half. So what's next? You know, the proverbial, anything that needed to be invented is invented, we're done, so much productivity, what's next? Well, that's the exciting part. There's much, much more to come. From, you know, the big data to massive data, to bandwidth to more than Moore's law, sensors, cloud, fog, steam, you know, whatever you want to call it, it is happening. Social, local, mobile networks, it is really happening. And the productivity, we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg. If you look at mobile computing, in 1995, you know, a lonely cell phone, StarTAC, remember that one? You know, I designed a couple of chips in that, and I thought that was a technological marvel, and this is the end. Well, nowadays, you have, basically what you have is an equivalent of a server in your pocket. Something that's a server rack a few years ago, short years ago, now it's a mobile phone. It's becoming a cloud device. And then, and compute is even moving beyond that, moving to the edges. And it's becoming really what we call ambient computing. And ambient computing is really the Internet of Things. Always on, location, activity, time. Where are you? What are you doing? What's the environment like? How does it feel? You see it in our pockets, you see it in the car, you see it in the home. So when you look at devices like wearables, sport, energy, security, control, it's all around us. Nest is not a simple thermostat. It's a great sensor. It probably has more visibility into what's going on in the home than anybody else have had before. So really, it's really the world is moving to what we call the Internet of Sensors. So Internet of Things is really about location, activity, environment. So you're going to see more compute coming together in devices like wearables. So let's talk a little bit about wearables. You know, a lot of people have wearables. It's coming. Well, the first generation of wearables wasn't that exciting, you know, and I haven't seen these devices take much traction. But it's coming along, you know, generation after generation, maybe a little bit of improvement, you know, maybe getting better now. We're not quite to this point, but it's getting there. The convergence of electronics, biomedical, all that is happening. So opportunity, you know, it'd be great, you know, how wonderful would it be for Iranian entrepreneurs to have a part in this as biomedical and electronics come together. Imagine, you know, 100 years from now, the next generation of humanoids and androids walking around feeding on chili kebab and Behrooz Abdi, you know. We want to be a part of that. So really, it is so many technologies we're going to hear hopefully today, and you see around us. It is really changing in a very profound way the nature of things for us. It is changing how we do things. It will change more how we go forward, and it's really exciting to see that. So when you look at building the bridge, you know, the bridge isn't just, the nice thing is it is a bridge for Iran to build. It is, and it's not climbing a mountain. You're no longer competing with a mountain of investment, manufacturing, big money in another country. You're no longer competing against the West when it comes to technology. You're competing in a very flat world. So there is a place for Iranian technologists, for Iranian entrepreneurs. And just like anything else, when we look at new companies, we're going to look at new region. What are the competencies? What is the long-term vision? What does Iran want to be as a center of excellence? And how do we go build that? What are the financial barriers? What are the cultural barriers? But there's no doubt in my mind that we can do that. There's a lot of challenges that we know Iran has faced, but I have no doubt that technology progress will transcend those. And it will be a time where we can build a bridge and build a bridge to this flat world. So with that, you know, let's start picking up the bricks, the metal, the mortar, and start building it. And with that, I say thank you.
Thank you for that talk, Mr. Abdi. So this is our first question and first set of panel, our first presentation. So you're getting one of the hottest questions first. How can Iran's technology sector grow when the brightest minds of the country are looking to immigrate to other countries?
Well, I think for every one person that immigrates to another country, there's a person that, two people that are born that are smarter. And when I look at when I immigrated here and I compare myself to the people that are in Iran right now, there's no way I had any chance if I were, you know, with my background and getting in a university, let alone the talent that we see there. And I think when I look at what's happening in China, India, a lot of European countries, a lot of the technology and a lot of smarts are there, but what they were lacking in the past was management. And that's where a lot of the US educated expatriates went back and really helped with funding, with management, really with structure and governance. And I think that's really the opportunity for us who were raised here in the last few years.
So the next question is, how is it possible to bypass sanctions and embargoes? So some of the realities of the current environment.
And that goes back, that is the most profound question. And really that goes back to the chart that I showed about what happened between China and Taiwan. Eventually, interests will come together more than diverging. And I think technology, economics, goals can really transcend ideology and a lot of the disconnects. And I'm hoping that that'll happen sooner than later, but I am hopeful that that'll happen because, again, Iran has so much to offer to the human race that it is tragic not just for Iran, but it's more tragic for the planet not to have that technology and to have that IP coming out of Iran. So I'm hopeful. But we leave it to the smarter people to figure out the logistics of how to fix it.
So that's actually a good question about what can be coming out of Iran. So people are asking, in what areas should Iran invest in the next 5 years to develop competitive and niche technologies?
I would start with stuff that's really low capital, quite frankly. I would start with things that are low capital and help the infrastructure in Iran. A few years ago, somebody approached me from India wanting to build a fab, advanced fab, semiconductor fab. And quite frankly, I told them, how can you build a fab? This is about 10, 15 years ago in a country where there's no good flow of infrastructure, electricity, water, and all that. So they have invested in some of the lower technologies, manufacturing, cell phones, packaging, devices like that, IT. And now that has really built out the infrastructure in India. And I think Iran should start with software, which a lot of smart people coming in software, and technologies that are from a semiconductor or from a high tech are maybe lagging edge, but you can do more newer stuff with and more innovative around the architecture and around building new products, and start from there. Build the infrastructure. That will drive the infrastructure of the country in terms of water, electricity, and all that.
So you just touched on infrastructure, but there's a question here that's been voted up, which is a nice segue. How can Iran possibly compete with the likes of China, India, and even countries like Brazil or Turkey with better legal, corporate, and IP protection mechanisms?
You don't want to compete with them. You want to be far better, and you want to be very different. You know, and different means you just got to have different products. I think Iran can be, the differentiation can be around IP. The differentiation can be around a lot of the technologies like in software and algorithms that's already being developed. Some of the things that I see coming out of Sharif University, sensors, MEMS, new technologies that I see coming out of Iran, and the entrepreneurs and technologies that have come to the US, it's very, very compelling. So it doesn't have to be competing with China on their terms. There's no way we're gonna, and we don't want to be the low-wage center of the world. And you know, it's not that what we want to do. It's really the differentiated technologies. And those are some of the things I'd like to learn. What is differentiated? What are some of the core competencies? What's the talent and skill and IP you know, inventory that we can take for Iran and start from there?
Thank you. That's all the time we have for questions, but thanks to everyone who's here and on the live stream for sending in the questions, and thank you, Mr. Abdi, for your time.
Thank you.